One of the differences you may have noticed when you go from a single sample instrument into a multi-sample instrument is that this zone parameter area becomes visible and something that you can use as a modulation source. And essentially how this works is you can assign certain zones or certain samples to P1, P2, P3. And then with those P1, P2, P3, you can then go and you can set modulation destinations across the sampler or anything that's nestled inside of the instrument. If you do a lot of multi-sample instruments, if you do a lot of like layered instruments, I should say, where you're layering like a complex pad on top of a bass, on top of this, on top of that, this may be useful for you because you can go and you can process those sounds differently. In this example, what we're going to do is we're going to take this Juno patch and what we're going to do is we're going to take that and we're going to then go in and for the lower octave, we're going to, process it one way. For the higher octave, we're going to process it a different way. And we'll be able to then hear how we can make one patch really become like two patches. They're going to sound very, very different at the end. So let's go ahead and get started first by taking that lower octave and making sure that we map that to P1. And the way you do that is you go into the expanded view, make sure you go to the proper grouping as we worked on before. And then we're just going to grab like this first octave here. And I'm going to go and I'm going to send it all into Z param 1, which just means that then when I go and I map this somewhere, it's going to be going full depth. Okay, so that is now well and good. We have that set up. We can get out of this. Let's go ahead and let's add on a chain here. And I'd really love to see if there's just like a preset I could bring up just so that we don't have to do like lots and lots of work. Let's see, is there like destruction or anything like that? There's a multi-effects. There's a destruction. Let's see, blurry overdrive, saturator, fast clip, blah, 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 blah. Let's try blurry overdrive. I'm a little bit nervous, but let's see what this sounds like. Wow. Okay, that might be too intense. Let's go ahead and let's just create something ourselves. Okay, so we're in business. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and place this inside of the sampler now. And I actually did make a mistake. I had the bit 8 playing in there. So that actually did help the sound. It really did kind of calm it down a little bit. So let's go ahead, put that into the effects chain. We're going to bring our mix all the way down to 0. So we're back to our starting point, take P1, and then go ahead and bring our mix up to 100. Now, once I play outside of this range, we don't hear any effect processing at all. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and it doesn't really matter actually now since I'm going to be playing in the higher octave anyway. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my effects chain first, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the routing after. And you're going to notice that there's something we'll have to do with the zones in order to make sure that we're able to get the reverb tails, the delay tails. And this is useful for you guys to see because this is an issue that I had to kind of work out myself as well. So we have our chain in here. And again, let's close down the sampler just so we have more room to work with. So that was not at all the direction I was planning to take this at the beginning, but hey, that's the direction that we ended up in at the end. And again, I'm going to repeat the process now. I'm going to go ahead and bring this into the sampler. Okay. Bring our mix all the way down to 0. We're back to normal. And we're going to have to do a couple things, but first let's go back in and we're going to grab that like higher octave. Let's just grab all of these guys. And we're going to send them all to Z parameter 2. Sweet. And we're going to have to come back in a little bit, though, and do some adjustments. And now I'm going to take that. I'm going to bring that mix value all the way up. Now, listen to what happens when I hit one of these higher keys. It cuts off aggressively. And that has to do with what's going on. Like once the sample finishes playing, even if we have a super long release, that sample is only so long. And once we get to the end of that sample, it just stops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in and I'm going to take those 19. And again, I'm not super concerned with being perfect, but I would like to be a little bit better than that. Let's see if we can get back to 19. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn their loops on, and I'm going to add in a little bit of crossfade. And then I'm going to basically take the loop to the very end almost. Let's go to like 1.6. And let's bring this back in a little bit, and let's look at one of them and just see where it created it. And that should be fine. It's going to be right towards the end here. And that's now going to allow the sound with the release tail all the way up, which actually I only want to do that for that second pair. Let me listen to a low one, figure out what the envelope is I want for that. And that's actually fine. But then for P2, I'm going to need to go in here and just crank this all the way just to try and guarantee that I get all of the tails and stuff on that reverb. So that's something you got to be aware of. We'll just crank it into overdrive. So now let's go up an octave. And hopefully it gets most of all that extra good stuff in there. Okay, it might still cut it off, but it did a good job there. Actually even add in a little bit of an attack, make this really interesting. That doesn't really work for us. I think what we really have to do is compress this sound, so that we can bring up what's going on at the end. Let me just go in here real quick and show you how I would do that. Dynamics. Okay, so we're gonna actually add some upwards compression here. Okay. So a little bit's going to go a long way, but what we've done now with this instrument is essentially we've created 3 different patches. In the middle, it's playing back normal, way down low. We've got that, and then way up high, we've got the chaos happening. I just find what's going on up there to be so interesting. It's not really usable in a musical sense, except for maybe some kind of weird hits every now and again. But that gives you an idea of how those zone parameters work. And you could take this so much further, okay? This is just the concept of how it works. It's up to you to figure out ways where it makes sense for you to apply it.